What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seahawks news, rumors, and, of course, updates. Today, the big breaking news on ESPN has to do with Myles Garrett, of course, not on the Seahawks, on the Browns, but Myles Garrett, he is a superstar, and when a superstar requests a trade, I think every single team has to at least look into the option of trading for said superstar. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Also talking about Ryan Grubb getting a new job at Alabama, and the Seahawks have hired their new quarterbacks coach. All of that, that's what we're going to be discussing today. But first, guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that red button down below there so you don't miss another future Seahawks update, and hit the bell so you will receive notifications every single time we post an episode. You don't want to miss it, guys. This is Seattle Seahawks rumors and updates you cannot get anywhere else. With that all being said, let's get into the show. Myles Garrett, Cleveland Browns superstar. He's won Defensive Player of the Year. He's been in the All-Pro, I believe, 5 times. He's been a Pro Bowler pretty much every single year of his career. Dude's a stud. He's excellent at rushing the quarterback. He's excellent at stopping the run. One of the best all-around defensive edges in the NFL, and he has been pretty much since he came to the league back in 2019. So Myles Garrett, reportedly, according to ESPN this morning, he is asking for a trade. He's requested that the Cleveland Browns will send him away in a trade. Unfortunate circumstances for Cleveland, who, yeah, they did make the playoffs with Myles Garrett, but they never really realized their full potential. Even with Myles Garrett, the best they could do was twice making the playoffs, and they won a single playoff game with him on the team. So, not necessarily realizing that full potential, but if you see the stats, Myles Garrett had an amazing season once again in 2024. Not a down year by any stretch. He had 14 sacks, 22 tackles for loss. By the way, that led the league. 28 quarterback hits, 40 solo tackles, and he forced 3 fumbles while recovering 1. So he ended up contributing on 4 fumbles as well. That is an all-around really good season, and he was rewarded with yet another All-Pro season. He was named to the All-Pro, first team All-Pro. I mean, this guy's a future Hall of Famer. If he keeps up what he's done over the past 5 years for another 3 or 4 years, he will be an NFL Hall of Famer. So when I say superstar, I truly mean superstar. That doesn't mean he's not going to be necessarily cheap. He's going to be expensive. But I think when a superstar is on the trade block, every single team, including, yes, the Seahawks, has to question, should we try to trade for this guy? So let's look at it from a Seahawks perspective. Should the Seahawks be interested in trading for Myles Garrett? I think it's tough because you look at the salary cap and you look at how much you'd have to pay Myles Garrett. You would have to pay a lot, and you'd have to give up a lot. And maybe that means trading DK Metcalf to the Browns for Myles Garrett. You end up saving a little bit of money, you would end up taking on a little bit more money in Garrett. You save the Browns money, and you still give them a really good player. There has been reports that the Browns could be interested in a DK Metcalf. Potentially, they're going to be drafting a new quarterback, so maybe they want to give their new quarterback a really great receiver. Meanwhile, the Seahawks are thinking, we have our new wide receiver 1 in Jackson Smith-Njigba, and instead of keeping DK, we're going to trade DK to take on Myles Garrett. I think it really depends on what the team wants to focus on, right? Do they think Mike Macdonald, being a defensive coach, I think he understands the value in a defensive lineman. I think he understands the value in having a really good edge. And there's not many players in the league who can do what Myles Garrett can do. I mean, think about it. Maybe, who else? Aiden Hutchinson, probably in that category. Nick Bosa is in that category. That's kind of it, though. There's not many. Chris Jones is in that category. Trey Hendrickson. So there's about 5 guys who really are as impactful game records as Myles Garrett. It's like TJ Watt, like prime TJ Watt, prime JJ Watt. That is the level. Prime Khalil Mack. That's the level where Myles Garrett is at. So yeah, I do think the Seahawks should at least examine it. And you have to call the Browns and see where their head's at. What are they looking for? Because let's say they are looking for, if they're looking for a couple picks, I think that has to be something you consider. If they're looking for DK Metcalf, again, this is one of the few guys in the league that I would consider giving up DK Metcalf for. That is how impactful of a player Myles Garrett is. All right, guys, let's talk some Ryan Grubb, some coaching changes. Ryan Grubb, he was fired a little bit less than a month ago as the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator. He has now found himself a new job. He is going to Alabama to reunite with Kalen DeBoer, and he is going to be their offensive coordinator for the Crimson Tide in 2025. I like this landing spot for Ryan Grubb. Obviously, in Seattle, things didn't work out philosophically, but the offense wasn't that bad. They scored 22 points per game. They went for 332 yards per game. They were a top 10 passing offense in the league, going for 236.5 passing yards per game. The big problems with Grubb's offense in Seattle, those two things down there at the bottom: rushing yards per game, only 95.7. It's tough when you have two really good running backs like the Seahawks do, and yet Ryan Grubb's offense ended up going for less than 100 rushing yards per game. That obviously was a kind of a philosophical difference, if you could say that, between him and Mike Macdonald. I think Mike definitely wanted to run the ball more. Ryan Grubb wanted to throw the ball more, and that's kind of where their differences were very well documented throughout the season as they kind of sparred on play calling. And yeah, Mike Macdonald ultimately had the final say, was able to force Grubb out. But I'm glad that Grubb found a new home in Alabama. He had a lot of success with DeBoer at Washington, and he was actually going to go. Remember, he was supposed to go to Alabama last year. The Seahawks actually stole him from Alabama. Now he is returning to DeBoer's coaching staff down in the South. So yeah, we'll watch the Alabama staff with great interest next year, as it will include a former Seahawks offensive coordinator. But yeah, and then you look at the third down percentage, only 37.6. So that was kind of the other area where he struggled in Seattle. But I'm happy for Ryan Grubb. I don't think he necessarily did a bad job as a Seahawks offensive coordinator, but I just think that when you don't have the same philosophy as the head coach, it's really hard to keep that job there, because I think the head coach and the offensive coordinator have to be in lockstep. That's a really important part of that job. Last but not least, guys, today the Seahawks have hired a new quarterbacks coach, Andrew Janocko. Andrew Janocko, he was the Minnesota Vikings quarterback coach when Clint Kubiak was their coordinator. He worked with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. And then when Clint Kubiak went to New Orleans, he brought Janocko with him to be the quarterback coach there as well. So Andrew Janocko, he has experience working alongside Clint Kubiak. If you look at the quarterback he was working with last year, it was with Derek Carr in New Orleans. Checking out what did Derek Carr do last season. He went 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,145 yards, 67.7 completion percentage, and a passer rating of 101. So that's not all that bad. A 101 passer rating is actually pretty darn good. Solid completion percentage. He's above 67%. You'd love to see that. And I think you have to remember, these numbers are in only 10 games. Derek Carr only started 10 games. He missed the other 7 with an injury. So for 10 games, he had a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio through 15 touchdowns. He was averaging more than 1 touchdown a game, and he was averaging over 200 passing yards a game. So yeah, I think those are pretty good numbers. And if Andrew Janocko can come in here and do similar work with Geno Smith that he did to Derek Carr, then yeah, I'd be happy with that, because a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio really stands out when you compare that to Geno Smith. He threw 21 touchdowns and 15 interceptions, so not even a 2-to-1 ratio. Derek Carr was at 3-to-1. That's really good. I don't expect to see that from Geno, but if Geno could maybe go 25 touchdowns and 12 picks, that would be huge even. Just getting that to a 2-to-1 ratio would be massive, I think, for Geno Smith's success next year. And now we have I think Andrew Janocko is a good hire. You know, he's worked with Kirk Cousins. He's worked with Derek Carr. Both guys, similar kind of players to Geno Smith. None of them like to run around that much. Both pocket passers, very similar to Geno. Both strong arms. And both of them are guys who, you know, at certain points in their career, you could consider them to be mid. You could consider them to be average guys. And Janocko has helped them both have good seasons. So I think he can help Geno Smith have a good season as well. And hopefully really kind of work glove in glove with Clint Kubiak to make that Seahawks offense roll next season. All right, guys, that is all I have for you today. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel once again, and comment down below, do you think the Seahawks should trade for Myles Garrett, and do you like the hiring of Andrew Giannocco as quarterback coach? I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What would you be willing to give up for Myles Garrett? I'm sure we'll be talking about that more in future videos. Probably might do a whole video just devoted to the question, what would be the possibility of a DK Metcalf for Myles Garrett sort of a trade? If that was the framework, comment down below. Do you want to see that video or not? But that all being said, thank you to Fan Arch for bringing us this video. And as always, until next time, go Seahawks.